And welcome to Chaos to Clarity. I'm meteorologist Bernie Rayno. It's been a while since I did this video. The last time we did this video was for Beryl back in early July. But there's a tricky situation setting up in the Atlantic. I want to show you what's going on in the Atlantic right now. Let's take you to the water vapor loop, or actually the Saharan dust product here. And this is why you tend to get very little development from mid-July to mid-August, most years, not all years, but most years. You can see all of this. This is all Saharan dust. And this is what's really been limiting tropical development. Now, remember, during June and the early July, you get jet streams coming south that can kick off tropical development in the Gulf of Mexico, the Southwest Atlantic, and in the Caribbean. But this time of the year, that jet stream is lifted way up to the north, so you do not have any interaction between the jet stream and the tropics. So the only way you can get development is these tropical waves coming off Africa, right? Where there's so much dry air that it limits development. That's why it gets quiet. Now, a couple of things going on. We've been tracking this tropical wave. It came off Africa on Wednesday, and it's been slowly pressing eastward over the last 4 to 5 days. Now, it's surrounded by dry air, by the way. The other thing we're going to keep an eye on is this. You've got an upper level low right in here. See, right in here. This is also moving to the west. It is also uncovered by dry air. That's why we haven't seen any development. Now, the question, I think what's going to happen is if we get development, it's the combination between this upper low and some of this tropical moisture getting embedded into the system. But I think it's not so much the tropical wave that's going to develop if it does. It's going to be the energy with this upper low as it pushes to the east. All right. Now, this whole thing has some hurdles to go over or to get through in order to get some development here. And I want to go over it for you. I created a little flow chart here that will help explain what's going on. So here's what this upper low and this tropical moisture has to go through. There are two hurdles for this wave to become a storm. First of all, the dry air. All right. Now, if this dry air, if it doesn't survive it, not only does it develop, it may just dissipate. So if this dry air kills it, then it's game, set, or match. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to limit development, but it's going to survive. The next hurdle it's going to have to overcome is the land interaction with Cuba and Hispaniola. This is going to be as we get into Thursday and Friday. Now, if this goes right over, this energy goes right over Cuba and Hispaniola, especially Hispaniola, this could totally dissipate. And if it does, then we don't have to worry about it. However, if this system survives this second hurdle, then we have to we may have to worry about a storm forming near Florida. Now, that could be in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, or it could be in Southwest Atlantic. The time frame on this would be over the upcoming weekend. So that's kind of what's going to happen. These are the two hurdles. If this system gets through these two hurdles, then I think we have a better than 50-50 chance that we're looking at some tropical development here. So that's kind of what we're facing with this as we move forward. All right, here's what I want to do. I want to show you some of the modeling on this so you get a sense of what we're looking at here. And I want to take you to the European model here quickly. All right, here's what we're looking at here with this system. So this is 500 millibar here. So here we are this afternoon. And I think the more and more I look at this, the more I think that most of the energy, if we do get a tropical system, it's going to be with the upper low, not necessarily the tropical wave. Let me show you why I think that. Let me go back to this morning. So this is the energy associated with the tropical wave right in here. Follow this along on the European. I'm going to follow it along. So it's right in here. Watch where that energy goes. See, that's going into the Caribbean. See, right in here. See, I think that this energy is what we're looking at around 50 degrees north and 12, 13 degrees, or 50 degrees west, 12 to 13 degrees north. Some of this moisture is going to go northward, but the main crux of this wave, I think, goes into the Caribbean, and it's too far south, and there's not going to be any development. I think the system to watch, the more and more I look at it, is this. Let me go back. It's this energy in here. This is the energy to watch. This is, if we get a tropical system, it's with this piece of energy, not the tropical wave. Now, does some of the moisture from the tropical wave get entrained to it? Sure, but I think we have to focus on this. All right? Now, watch where this goes as we go forward here. Let's play this out. So, by the time we get into Tuesday, that energy, let's say Tuesday afternoon, that energy is right in here, north and west of the islands. All right, we still have some dry air to deal with here. We also have a little bit of wind shear. Let me show you the 200 millibar in this area. See, it's right in here. You have this dip in the jet stream right in here, right? This is producing southerly wind shear. So as this system comes into that, it's not going to develop. That's why I would not look for any development with this system through Tuesday, if not even Wednesday and Thursday. Let's continue to follow this piece of energy. So what are we following? We're more following the upper low than we are the tropical wave. This is Wednesday morning. This is where the energy is, right in here. All right? So it's north and west of the islands Wednesday morning. Let's go to Wednesday evening. Here it is. You can definitely see a circulation here north of the Virgin Islands. All right, so this is what it looks like. This is where the energy is. I think the tropical wave's down here, and it's gone. I think you got to focus on the upper low. All right, what's going on at 200 millibars here? This is where we're looking at the wind shear. Do we have any wind shear? This is at 200 millibars right in here. And what's happening is this trough that's been producing wind shear is lifting. So you're starting to get less wind shear in this area. So this is where you're going to start seeing this system start to, let's say, organize a little bit. And you can clearly see that because watch what happens. This is 8 o'clock Wednesday. Watch what happens as we get into Thursday. You start seeing Thursday afternoon, you start seeing some bright colors in here north of Puerto Rico. You see it. So that's where the system is. What does the wind shear look like? There's not much. In fact, you've got a big upper high in here, or at least a weak upper high, I should say, right in here. So you have very light wind shear, low winds aloft. Also, the dry air is going to be diminishing. So this is when the system starts to develop as we get into Thursday. Now, the question is where does it go? If it's this far north, as I get in the Friday morning, or let's say late Thursday night, here's the energy, and notice where it is. It's north of Hispaniola in Puerto Rico. That's a critical move. If I saw this energy come over Hispaniola, especially Hispaniola, I think it would diminish and there wouldn't be any development whatsoever. So this was the second hurdle. Interaction with Hispaniola. That's Thursday night into Friday. If it misses Hispaniola and stays off to the north, like the European model suggests, because it's not the tropical wave that develops, it's this upper low, then we're going to have some problems. Because you can clearly see when you look at 200 millibar here, where this system is, there's no wind shear in here. And there's less dry air, so this is going to start to develop. Let's start moving it forward here as we get into Friday and the upcoming weekend. Let's go to Friday afternoon. Here it is. Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock. Here's the energy. It's over the Turks and Caicos and the southern Bahamas. So it's not down here. It's in here, north of Cuba. What does it look like at 200 millibar? Do we have any wind shear in that area? And the answer is not really, because you see what's going on in here? Your system is located in here, and you've got a 200 millibar high. So you have light winds aloft, right? So this is going to start to develop then. And if it continues to move northwestward, as we think it will, it starts getting into, and there we go, and then all of a sudden, by Saturday, it's across the northern Bahamas. You have your upper high in here, right? At 200 millibars, what's going on with wind shear? Not much, a little bit of southerly wind shear, but it'll be moving parallel to that. So what I'm concerned about, if the European is right and we're tracking this upper low and it stays north of Hispaniola, it stays north of Cuba, it gets in the southwestern Atlantic, I see light wind shear and a lack of dry air, and then it's going to develop. Now the question is, what is it the upper low or the tropical wave? That's the question. I kind of think it's this upper low and not the tropical wave. I think the tropical wave gets buried, goes down in the southern Caribbean, and it's game, set, or match. It's game, set, and match. It's the upper low. Now, maybe the European's wrong and the upper low is a little farther south and it goes over Hispaniola. And if that happens, that would be Thursday and Friday. This thing would weaken and it would not develop at all. My concern is it's the upper low, it's farther north, and once it gets past Hispaniola, then I think you have light wind shear, you don't have any dry air, and then this is going to try to become a storm, and it would threaten the Carolina and Florida coast late this weekend into early next week. That's a concern. All right, I want to tidy it up here with some graphics to give you an idea of what we're thinking here. Let me put this on full so you can see it. All right. This is what we're looking at here over the next couple of days. Limited organization as it moves. Oh, let me start with this one here. I have them out of order. This is what I want to start with. So here it is today. There's still too much dry air. I don't think we're going to look for any organization. It won't be a tropical depression. It certainly won't be a storm. Not until we get in past Tuesday. Now, once it gets toward Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands in this zone, and again, it's either going to be the tropical wave or the upper low. I think conditions are favorable for development. It may become a tropical depression. I still think it is so weak right now, it's going to take some time to get rid of that dry air that's been hampering it. But certainly, conditions are more favorable for development Wednesday, Thursday, as it nears the Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Now, where does it go from there? This is where it gets even trickier, because then as we get into Thursday and Friday, it starts to interact with Hispaniola. Now, if the energy stays north toward the Turks and Caicos and north of Hispaniola, then the interaction will be limited. And with light wind shear, this could really start to go. It could easily become a tropical depression or storm. But if it's too far south and interacts with the islands, then again, I think not much development happens. Assuming it clears this hurdle and gets into either the eastern Gulf of Mexico or more likely the Southwest Atlantic, this is where you start to get concerned because there's abundant moisture and low wind shear. And this is where it could start to develop, and that would be this weekend. All right? So that's where we are with this right now. And that's why if you look at our development, what are we looking at here? We think there's a 50-50 chance this is going to develop. It all depends on what's left of this energy as it enters this area of abundant moisture and low wind shear. I suspect that there will be no development until it gets into this area near Florida, and that would be this weekend. The only caveat to that is if the energy is far enough north of Hispaniola Thursday night and Friday, maybe we could get a depression. I don't think we would get a tropical storm until it gets into this area as we get into the upcoming weekend. And then, depending on where it is, certainly would have impacts on the United States. So it's a pretty complicated setup, certainly as we go forward here. But the key takeaway is this. Don't look for any development through the middle part of this week. I think if it becomes a storm, it will become a storm near Florida, whether in the eastern Gulf of Mexico or in the Southwest Atlantic as we head into this weekend. And if it does, then it's certainly going to threaten Florida. And if it's out in the Southwest Atlantic, it's going to get awfully close to the Carolinas. So I'm going to have more on this as we go forward here, but I think this is something we're going to have to watch certainly. And I think if it survives, it gets past the dry air the next couple of days, if it gets over the second hurdle in Hispaniola and gets in the Southwest Atlantic or eastern Gulf of Mexico, then it's going to try to develop, and that'll be this weekend. I hope that makes sense. There is a lot of chaos with this. I hope I've made it some clarity out of it as well. If you have any questions, you can contact me on Twitter. I'm at AccuRayno, or I should say X. I'm at AccuRayno. Have yourself a great Monday.